In 2015, the cyber arms race got a whole lot hotter. The Pentagon issued a new cyber military strategy. The US Cyber Command, under Admiral Mike Rogers, put out a new strategy document called Beyond the Build, saying that they would deliver cyber weapon options to every level of command in the United States Armed Forces. China issued a new military strategy saying that outer space and cyberspace have become the commanding heights of international strategic competition. In 2016, the Australian government acknowledged for the first time its preparations for offensive cyber operations. The country's new cybersecurity minister told the country that it had to be prepared to face a cyber storm, that is, an extreme cyber event that could dramatically affect essential services. By the end of 2016, Russia is in the spotlight for its hacking of the United States Democratic Party and facing the very serious charge that it had sought to subvert the United States presidential election. The technologies of war and politics in cyberspace are changing rapidly, and the military strategy of all major powers is changing as quickly. In this environment, diplomacy must also respond. The challenge for middle powers like Australia is to construct a diplomacy that can help preserve our interests in the face of a cyber arms race in which we are not participating. Australia and the like-minded countries must, as we are doing, actively promote military restraint in cyberspace. Just as a cyber arms race gathered steam in 2015, so did global efforts to promote voluntary restraint in state behaviour in cyberspace. There has been a string of cooperative measures by states over more than a decade in multilateral and bilateral settings. These include agreements in APEC, the ASEAN Regional Forum, and various formations of a group of government experts under the auspices of the United Nations, looking at international security aspects of information and communications technology. This assessment of progress on international cooperation is also captured directly in the language of a 2010 international treaty and associated protocol signed by China and the United States, among almost 100 other countries. The agreements update earlier treaties on aircraft hijacking that were signed before the September 2001 terrorist attack in the United States. It took from 2001 until 2010 for the treaties to be finalised and ready for signature. By this time, states came to realise that cyber attack against civil aviation, including aircraft in flight or air traffic control, could be used for a terrorist attack. This treaty requires participating states to criminalise technological attack against civil aviation. According to the International Civil Aviation Organization, which set up the conference, the reference to technological attack was a direct reference to cyber attack. Apart from the Civil Aviation Treaty, commitment to restraint had remained largely exploratory or rhetorical until 2015. Throughout 2015, there are a number of landmark agreements between states on new rules for cyberspace, premised on the principle of mutual restraint. These include a Russia-China agreement, a US-China agreement, and a new declaration in the framework of the G20. The Russia-China agreement goes the farthest. It commits each country to refrain from quote-unquote unlawful interference in the information infrastructure of the other. In 2016, the United States and China reached a landmark agreement not to undertake cyber espionage for the commercial gain of their civil sector companies, following some 5 years of public complaint by the Americans. So, Australia's diplomacy of cyberspace must also address our technological backwardness relative to the most advanced countries. In 2014, Australia's Defence Science and Technology Organisation, part of the Department of Defence, said that the country's cybersecurity posture was lagging badly. Many commentators have made this point, including in submissions made through 2014 and 2015 in the public consultation phase of preparing Australia's 2016 Defence White Paper, and around the publication of the 2016 Australian Cybersecurity Strategy. Papers published by the Australian Centre for Cybersecurity at UNSW in 2016 also highlight this point. Australia is in catch-up mode. This course grounds its approach to cyber war and cyber peace in a broader understanding of the digital economy and the somewhat revolutionary concept of the information society. The idea of an information society evolved from an earlier concept of information economy or knowledge economy. In 1962, an American economist, Fritz Machlup, estimated for the first time the monetary value of knowledge in the United States, and he worked out how this form of production had transformed the economy. By the early 1970s, various commentaries on this work by Machlup had produced the concept of the knowledge economy and information economy, portending an information revolution every bit as transformational in social and political terms as the Industrial Revolution. Thus, by the 1970s, the world was entering an information age. The transformative effect of the new age was seen early on as extending beyond the industrial and economic domains to reach the very moral fabric of society. In 1964, Norbert Wiener penned a short work appropriately titled God and Golem, with the subtitle, A Comment on Certain Points Where Cybernetics Impinges on Religion. In 1976, Daniel Bell predicted that the information revolution would be the catalyst for a post-industrial society, and that information exchange would become the basis of all economic and social exchange. One of the most insightful antecedents of the idea of information society was probably a book published in Japan in Japanese in 1980. The author coined the term computopia. This word, combining computer and utopia and invoking a morally and materially perfect world, was anticipating the comprehensive and profound effects of information technologies and their use. The author, Masuda, foreshadowed the realization of a society that brings about a general flourishing state of human intellectual creativity instead of affluent material consumption. He also anticipated e-democracy, the globalization of a new renaissance, a shattering of previous conceptions of privacy, the emergence of a new concept of time value, and a new intensity and system innovation, all premised on the complete objectification and commodification of information, hence the concept information society. By the early 1990s, this concept had become globally prominent as an important goal of national and international policy. By 2002 and 2003, the international community of states came together in a rolling global conference called the World Summit on the Information Society, WSIS for short. WSIS meets every year, even today. So, colleagues, thanks for joining the course. It's going to provide you with advanced interdisciplinary study in Australia's diplomacy and national strategies for security in cyberspace. Taking the normal definition of diplomacy as the management of on the international stage of all of a country's cross-border interests, this course engages primarily with 4 questions and Australia's diplomatic response to them. First, the innovation economy in information and communications technologies as a foundation for national welfare and security. Second, privacy and personal security in cyberspace. Third, strategies for national security in cyberspace. Fourth, and finally, Australian diplomacy on all of these issues. The World Economic Forum, working with the Australian Industry Group, has painted a picture of Australians as good at uptake of digital technologies for social purposes, but weaker at applying them in business and industry. Australia's economic competitors are moving rapidly into higher levels of digital innovation at the same time as our leading trade partners and neighbours in Asia have unmet demands for services in the digital economy. Inside Australia, the environment for decision-making on policy for the information age has been operating on narrow pathways. The picture of our digital economy is one of failing competitiveness and only medium to low levels of innovation. New cyber threats and capabilities are emerging in the military and espionage scenes to which Australia must adapt and respond. But the country needs a new digital age strategy for civil sector before it can have a digital age military strategy. The experience levels that key decision makers have in the case of the IT sector do not in many cases match the nature of the diverse challenges we face. Perhaps a defence organisation, which is quite well placed in this field, can take the lead in helping to reverse this situation in the country as a whole. But it would need to recognise at the outset that the level of expertise in Australia in military applications in this field, as even in the civil applications, is still low. We need new foreign allies in this field, and this effort will need to be multinational, multi-sector and private-public. In grappling with the large problems of national innovation strategies and national security issues, all actors have had to confront the social and legal impacts of advanced information technologies as well. The debate over privacy and metadata laws for security surveillance is just one example of the myriad ethical questions Australia has had to confront. This course positions a student to understand better the profound influences across all of these fields I've mentioned above to the new technologies in order to appreciate the main policy dilemmas emerging in the exploitation of the technologies. We need to develop the ability to undertake critical analyses of the issues and communicate them accordingly. This course is part of the new Master's degree in Cybersecurity Strategy and Diplomacy, which started in 2016. The degree program is unique in Australian universities and it has few peers anywhere in the world. I hope you enjoy it and take from it a deeper appreciation of the issues and get to know the best academic and policy studies on the subject. In the knowledge economy and the information age, ideas rule.